I had been a police officer for 10 years, patrolling the streets of Jeffersonville, Indiana. My routine had become second nature. Start the shift with a quick briefing at the station, get updates on wanted suspects or recent crimes, and then head out in my cruiser some nights. It was quiet, just a few traffic stops, or the occasional noise comp complaint. Other nights, it was like every call came all at once, and I'd be running around until sunrise, but I never imagined a night like the one I'm about to. Tell you, before I became a cop, I was convinced I'd make it in football. I was a decent running back in high school, and my coaches always said I had the speed and the determination. However, after a torn ACL during my senior year, my hopes for a scholarship died. I eventually found my way into the police academy, figuring I could use the discipline I'd honed on the field over the years. I learned to love the job helping people and feeling like I was doing something good for my community. But by 2016, after a decade on the force, it started to wear on me. That summer, we got word about a string of robberies in the Clarksville area. The suspect's name was Robert Harrington. Medium-build, dark hair, known for driving a black sedan. He'd been elusive for weeks, always seeming to slip away just as backup arrived on the night in question. I was in my cruiser near East 10th Street, not far from Walnut Ridge Cemetery. It was past midnight, and the roads were nearly empty, except for a stray car or e-morning briefing. This was the guy, same name, same description. It didn't help that his hand was trembling on the steering wheel. I calmly asked him to step out of the vehicle. He refused at first, muttering that I had the wrong person. I didn't want to spook him, but as soon as I reached for my radio to call for backup, he floored the accelerator and took off. I sprinted back to my cruiser, adrenaline shooting through my veins, and started the pursuit. He led me down a dark side street away from T8, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. Even with my spotlight on, I couldn't see any sign of movement. Finally, I decided to stop, hoping my backup would arrive soon. I got out of my cruiser, gun drawn, and carefully approached the cemetery's gates. The silence was unnerving. No distant traffic, no crickets, nothing. As I moved closer to the fence, my heart pounded in my ears. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw headlights. A black car. For a second, I thought it was Harrington. Doubling back, I aimed. Pulse kicked up again. I inched closer, using my flashlight to peer through the windows. The driver's seat was empty, the door slightly ajar. That's when I spotted movement inside the cemetery grounds. A shape, someone dressed in dark clothing, slipped between the headstones, flashlight shaking a bit. I passed through the iron gate, trying to keep my footsteps quiet. Tombstones jutted out from the darkness, and every step felt heavier than the last. My radio crackled as dispatch confirmed backup was IECHO. Then Robert Harrington appeared from behind them. My mind raced 4 against 1. My backup was still out of sight. One of them shouted at me to drop my weapon. I didn't hesitate. I set it on the ground and raised my hands. They rushed me, pinned my arms back, and forced me onto my knees. I could feel the cold, damp earth through my pants. The smell of wet grass and ancient stone was overwhelming. I remember them whispering to each other, trying to decide what to do with me. I tried to keep calm, breathless and shaking, as my fellow officers led the suspects to waiting squad cars. They found evidence later that these guys had been using one of the old mausoleums for stashing stolen goods, and there were even open graves. They used his hiding spots. The entire thing felt surreal, like a nightmare. I couldn't wake from after that night. I started questioning everything I'd seen, my fair share of danger. But something about being outnumbered alone in that dark cemetery pushed me over the edge. If you've ever been through an exam season, you know how the stress can eat at you day and night. At least, that's how it felt for me. It all started on a Thursday afternoon. I came home from school feeling anxious because my history exam was the next day, and I hadn't studied enough to make matters worse. My parents were packing to leave for my cousin Kevin's wedding in Mano, about an hour and a half south of us. They'd be gone until Monday, which meant I'd be on my own for the first time. I helped hing about the empty house. Made me uneasy. The absence of my parents' voices and the hum of their routine was unsettling. Every small noise seemed amplified the faint ticking of the clock in the living room, the hum of the refrigerator to take my mind off it. I decided to watch some TV. It helped, but I still felt on edge. After about an hour, I grabbed my phone and texted my friend Melissa, a classmate of mine. We both had the same history exam coming up. I asked if she could spend the night, so looking pale, she claimed she saw someone sitting in our backyard right in one of the chairs on the deck. At first I thought maybe she was mistaking a shadow or something, but she insisted she saw the outline of a person. My heart pounded, but I tried to stay calm. We both went upstairs to my bedroom window to check. I peered into the backyard, scanning it carefully. The overhead porch light was dim, but I didn't see anyone. The chair was empty, and everything was still. I suggested maybe her eyes are just me in the house again, with the rain pounding against the windows and the wind rattling. The back fence. My nerves spiked. I tried to focus on my notes, but that uneasy feeling was creeping back in. Then I heard a faint squeaking sound like someone shifting in a wooden chair on the deck. I froze. The sound came again this time, more distinct. Slowly I crept upstairs, flicking off lights so I wouldn't be seen from outside at my bedroom window. I gently parted the curtains. The porch light cast art of me. Thought it might be him trying to lure me out by pretending to be someone else. Then I heard a muffled voice announcing, "Police." Another voice followed. This time I recognized it as my neighbor, Mrs. Carlson. She's lived next door for years, and my mom had asked her to keep an eye on me while they were gone. I cautiously went downstairs through the peephole. I saw Mrs. Carlson and an officer standing on my porch. I let them in, practically shaking. Mrs. Carlson explained that she'd been tidying right before I left. I took a quick, nervous look out the back door, half expecting to see that shadowy figure again. But all I saw was the empty chair wet with rain. That night I lay awake in Mrs. Carlson's guest room. Still frightened, my parents came back on Monday, and I never spent another night alone until I left for college, even though nothing physically happened to me. The fear I felt was real before we dive into the next story. If you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't find a motel somewhere along the route. I booked a small roadside place, figuring I'd catch some rest and start fresh in the morning. The motel was nothing special. A low single-story building with a flickering neon sign. My room had the basics: a bed, a TV, a bathroom that smelled faintly of bleach. Still, it felt like a relief. I changed into a t-shirt and sweatpants, trying to forget the stress of that meeting. My phone buzzed with follow-up emails from my boss, but I ignored them for once and tried to my door open to see a woman in a bathrobe, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me and pleaded for help, rambling that a motel worker had attacked her husband and even killed him. I froze. The word "killed" rang in my ears. I stepped into the hallway and asked where her husband was. She pointed to her room a few doors down, saying his body was there. I was freaked out, but I followed her, half out of concern, half out of shock. When we reached her room, I saw a man lying on the floor. Motionless, his supposed worker got into a locked room. She looked confused. She mumbled something about him saying there was a problem with the room, a missing part, or a repair. Her husband opened the door, and then the attacker lunged. The story felt patchy, like she was making it up on the spot. The police asked the motel manager to round up all the employees for questioning. A handful of people showed up. Housekeepers, a maintenance guy, the clerk, but the woman insisted the attacker wasn't among them. The MAE footage showed the woman leaving her room earlier, wearing some sort of mask and walking around the parking lot carefully, almost like she was stalking someone. Then she went back into her room, and a few minutes later she emerged screaming. There was no sign of a mysterious employee, no knocking at her door, no one else going inside. She got arrested on the spot. For suspicion of murder, apparently there were enough signs pointing to her involvement in her husband's death. Plus the contradictory, "Ow, I can't piece together all the details." Was she planning this all along? Did something happen between them that escalated into violence? And why create a story about a random motel worker? All I know is I barely slept for days. After that, my mind kept replaying the scene, the woman's frantic screaming, the lifeless body on the floor, and the cops shaking their heads at the CCTV footage. The motel was supposed to be a quick pit stop on my long drive back from a stressful meeting, but it turned me. I got drafted by the Dolphins in April of 2012 and started training camp in July. I was and still am a very shy and introverted person, and I didn't expect to befriend everyone on the team. Right away, I met every player on the team, including the coaching staff, and it was no problem. At first, the second week of training camp then came, and that's when the hazing had started. The first hazing ritual I did was carrying veterans' bags and paying for team dinners. I didn't take offense to this AS at me, but it was primarily from Richie. I took this a little more personally than having to carry bags and pay for dinner. This had hit home more. I was a victim of racial abuse growing up. So this wasn't the first time someone would call me slurs. They would also mock my intelligence and say I wasn't cut for the NFL and I should be a scientist. Instead, they would say these things because I went to college at Stanford. I would initially try to laugh it off and would even play along at times as ID than all the others, which made me stand out in a locker room that valued toughness and bravado. A lot of other black people were on the team, but none were a victim of racial abuse. Like me, it was now early in the 2012 season, and this is where the harassment got worse. One time, I was pressured to pay thousands of dollars for team events, including a $15 Zero Las Vegas trip that I didn't even attend. This was not a standard rookie dinner, but an excessive financial demand that I felt forced FL culture. The Miami Dolphins organization is also known as a tough guy culture, though I never spoke publicly in 2012 about all the bullying I suffered. It took a very great toll on my mental health. I wish I could tell you that it ends here, but sadly it doesn't, and the bullying continued throughout the 2013 NFL season. In October of 2013, I had my mental health remained the same. In the 2014 NFL season, I was now on the San Francisco 49ers. I played 15 games that season, but my confidence with an MBA in finance and real estate. I also am a co-founder of the Narrow Road Group, which is a real estate platform. After accomplishing these things, I am now happier than I have ever been before. Although I might be loving my life right now, I will always have demons inside me. From my NFL experience, for those of you who are being bullied, you need to speak up. If you don't, then the bullying will continue, and it could lead to you doing very evil things in life. You may feel alone, but you are no overhead fixtures. None at night. The corners disappeared in inky blackness, and the single floor lamp we inherited from a friend was so dim, it barely illuminated the space around the couch. I work night shifts at a copy shop, which means I'm usually wide awake when the rest of the city's winding down if I wanted to read pay bills or even find my socks without fumbling. I needed something bright that wouldn't cost half my paycheck, given that minimum wage doesn't stretch far in New York. Buying price was a mere $20. The seller's username was just a random string of letters and numbers. No ratings, no biography, nothing. Javi glanced at the ad over my shoulder, scratched his chin, and shot me a look that screamed, "We might get murdered." I shrugged. We'd both just paid rent, and desperation can make a bad idea look like a solid plan. Seller insisted on meeting in Brooklyn near the Navy Yard. It was a late afternoon in early spring when I drove over the sky-tinged gray by the prom hole, and the letters were peeling off and the windows on the upper levels were cracked or boarded up. Honestly, the place looked abandoned. The front door led into a dimly lit lobby. I turned on the flashlight on my phone, swallowing hard. "Hello," I called, my voice echoing in the emptiness. "I'm here for the lamp." No answer for a moment. Considered leaving $20 or not. The whole setup screamed danger, but then I heard footsteps on the stairs. A figure in a gray hoodie materialized above me. His face, relief. It was identical to the Craigslist photos. Sleek, modern, flawless. The kind of lamp that usually costs a couple $100 easy. I pulled out my wallet, forcing a laugh that sounded more nervous than casual. "Are you sure?" "20's okay. This lamp must be worth a lot more." Before I could finish, I heard a harsh clang. The world went sideways, my mind blanked. Then I felt a sharp, dizzying impact on my temple, and everything dissolved into blackness. Coming to us like swimming upward through thick, i.e. a rush of footsteps. Grunts and bodies slamming against walls, a bright flashlight cut through the darkness. Landing on my face, I squinted. A cop knelt, and her voice was surprisingly gentle as she told me, "You're okay. We've got an ambulance on the way." They took me to the hospital, where I discovered that the men who'd attacked me were part of a robbery scam. They used fake Craigslist ads to lure in buyers, then stole whatever they could. Money, credit cards, phones. Sometimes they'd resell the goo for a bit, but once we clear it, you can take it. He said, almost apologetically, "Might as well get something out of this mess, right?" A few days later, bruised and bandaged, I hobbled back into our Queens apartment. Javi predictably pounced on the lamp, like a cat on a favorite toy. "Dude, we are keeping this. It's practically a trophy," he said, turning it on to check the glow and free lighting best Craigslist deal. Ever, the lamp worked perfectly, casting a warm, comfortable light that made our dingy livy tiver. You brought with you. The first night was exactly what you'd expect. We got there late afternoon, set up our tents, gathered some firewood, and just chilled. Typical camping stuff. Nothing weird. The second day was more of the same. We hiked fish, a little explored around. There was no one else out there, at least as far as we could tell. That was part of the appeal. Just us and miles of woods. But that night something felt off. We were sitting around the fire again, not even late, maybe 9:30 or 10. That's when I noticed the woods were dead. Silent, no crickets, no wind, nothing. Eventually, we heard nothing else, and we forced ourselves to laugh it off, even though none of us felt like laughing. We turned in not long after that. Now here's where it gets worse. On the third night, we couldn't shake the weird vibe. It was like this low-grade tension all day. We didn't talk about it, but you could feel it that night. We built the fire bigger, like it would somehow keep whatever that was away around M-Hen's silence. Then more steps circling the tents. I could hear Mark's breathing change in the tent next to mine. He was awake too. I wanted to whisper to say something, but I was too scared to even move. The steps got closer. I thought about unzipping my tent to look out, but the idea of someone or something standing there in the dark just outside made my chest tighten. I had this image in my head of a face staring back at me inches away. Then the footsteps stopped. I waited, straining to hear anything, but prints not ours. They circled our tents, clear as day, deep impressions in the dirt. Barefoot, who the hell walks barefoot in the woods in the middle of the night? We hiked back to the car without saying much. None of us wanted to admit how freaked out we were. I've been a security guard for about 5 years now. It's not as exciting as people think. No high-speed chases, no epic confrontations. Mostly just long hours of walking, empty hallways, staring at security monitors, and trying to keep me awake. By night it was quiet, just me, my usual rounds, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights around 11:30 p.m. I was in the control room, feet up on the desk, sipping lukewarm coffee, half watching the grainy security feeds. That's when I noticed something odd on one of the exterior cameras. A man was standing just outside the main entrance. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. About 10 FT from the door, not moving. His face was partially hidden under a hoodie. Hands were buried in his jacket pockets. Quick walk downstairs to see if he needed help, or to tell him to move along if he was. Loitering as I walked toward the lobby, I kept glancing at the monitors from the other cameras. He hadn't moved an inch. When I got to the glass doors, I could see him now standing under the dim glow of the streetlight. His face was still shadowed. There was this weird vibe about him. You know how sometimes you just feel when someone's not right? Like your brain picks up on something subtle that you can't locate. I went straight back to the control room and I checked the monitors again. It was gone, no sign of him anywhere. I flipped through every camera. Nothing. There's no way he could have moved that fast without being caught on at least one other angle. I even checked the parking lot, feet empty. It should have been the end of it. Just some weird dude. Right. But about 30 minutes later, around midnight, I saw something else on one of the upper floor cameras. It was movement, the office should. Where he was going, I grabbed my flashlight and radio. Not that the radio would have helped much. I was the only guard on duty. My mind raced through the possibilities. Maybe he was an employee I didn't recognize. Maybe I missed him on the last round. I took the stairs two at a time, trying to stay quiet. I reached the floor where I'd seen him. The hallway was empty. I could hear the faint hum of office equipment and the buzz of vending machines down the hall. No footsteps, no sound of doors. I was distracted by him outside. At that point, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I called the cops. They showed up fast and cleared the building with me. But he was gone, just vanished. No sign of forced entry, and nothing was stolen. The only weird thing they found was a set of footprints leading to the maintenance room. A place with no cameras inside, but he wasn't there. The cops said he was probably a squatter or someone trying to steal equipment. Maybe, but that didn't expire.